You are listening to the Retina UK National Peer Support Group Summer Meeting, recorded 3rd of July 2024.
Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our Summer National Peer Support Group meeting. This is the second anniversary of this national peer group that I set up in 2022 as a way of our peer group community getting together across all of the UK. If you don't have a peer group near you, or you are unable to get to your local peer group, it's a great way of sharing new skills, information, and exciting talks and experiences to our community, so you can perhaps go off and try these for yourself. And I'm very pleased to introduce this evening a charity called Aerobility that can offer tailor-made flying experiences for the disabled and the visually impaired. We've got two joining us from Aerobility this evening. We've got Harvey Matthewson, and we also have Geoff Spink, who is going to be giving a presentation about this amazing charity. So without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Geoff to tell us all about this amazing charity.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for that lovely introduction, Mark. Now, tell me, what time do you want me to finish talking? Because I'll aim to try and finish that right on the dot.
20 to 25 minutes, that's fine.
All right, so between 1:30 and 25 to.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, everyone, I'm going to share my screen with you in order to show you a PowerPoint. And I have to say, I am vision impaired as well. So, you know, I understand the difficulties of trying to follow along with stuff that's visual only. So I will try to describe anything that's not obvious. There are a couple of video clips which I don't think we can play due to technical issues, and that's a shame, but we will give you the video clips afterwards, okay? So as well as the whole PowerPoint, which I'm going to send to Mark, we will send you separate video clips so that you can see them yourself at home. They work perfectly well in my PowerPoint. Anyway, let's get going. So I'm Geoff Spink. I've just been made an Aerobility ambassador, and that means that I get to go around the country and appear online at various events and talk about this amazing charity called Aerobility, which I have known about for at least the past 15 to 17 years, but with whom I've only just become directly involved in the last couple of years. So I'd like to talk about that and tell you a bit about me and my journey, and then my journey into aviation. And hopefully we'll have time at the end to answer any questions. My colleague Harvey is on this call as well. He's an experienced Aerobility hand, and if I get something wrong or I miss something out, I'm sure he'll jump in and let me know and let you all know. Right, okay, so first of all, who am I? Well, I was born with impairments caused by thalidomide, which was a sedative drug developed in Germany, not adequately tested and given to pregnant women, and with the result that a lot of babies were born either didn't make it into life or were born with severe impairments. For my own case, and for people who can't see me at all, I've got very short arms with slightly, shall we just say, differently formed hands on the end. I've got a completely missing right eye, and I've got severely impaired vision in my left eye, which means I'm registered blind, and I gather some of you guys are registered blind. As you probably know, being registered blind doesn't mean that you have no sight whatsoever. It was a category that sort of included a lot of a whole spectrum when people went on the blind register. As my old school headmaster used to say, you're blind, but you can see a bit. So just a quick few words about my life journey to date. I'm 62, by the way. I'm now retired. I went to special schools from the age of 5, that's boarding school. My parents were given no choice. My father was told look, you know, if we send him to the local school, we can't guarantee his safety. And my dad was fanatical about keeping me safe. So you only had to say the S word to him, and he would have consigned me to a labor camp in Siberia if he thought it was safe. So I went to special boarding schools from the age of 5 until I was 17. I went to the University of Loughborough, where I studied French and politics after a short spell in the world of work. So I went as a slightly mature student, age 22. At the end of my 4-year degree, I went off to Falmouth, what's now called Falmouth University. It used to be called Falmouth School of Art and Design back in my day, to do a postgraduate diploma in radio journalism. And that's because I was trying to get into the BBC, and I asked the BBC which of the journalism courses around the country did they consider extremely good. And they said, well, there are various ones. They're all much of a muchness, but we really, really rate the Falmouth one. So I went to Falmouth and I got my postgrad in Falmouth. Then in the summer of 1989, it was a very momentous year if you're old enough to remember 1989. At the time that I was doing my sort of career interviews in 1989, you know, the whole of Tiananmen Square was full of students, and there was a sort of, you know, mock Statue of Liberty that they'd erected, and then you know what happened after that. Lots of them were mown down by tanks and armored cars, and it all ended very, very horribly. But I didn't want to put all my eggs in the BBC basket, so I was applying for the BBC after Falmouth, and I also applied for the diplomatic service. The reason I did that was because somebody gave a talk to us when we were students at Loughborough. In our final year, they said, oh, you know, language students like you guys, here's a whole bunch of things that you might think about applying for. But don't apply for the fast track in the diplomatic service, because nobody from these universities ever got in. And I just resented being told what I couldn't apply for. So like the stubborn so-and-so that I am, I applied and I got in. And so in the end, I had this amazing choice between a really good traineeship in BBC News, where I would be trained to work in the radio and television newsrooms, and a fast track place in the diplomatic service, where I'd potentially be sent all around the world and would perhaps end my career as an ambassador somewhere. And I had to think very long and hard about what to do. And I chose the BBC in the end because it sort of suited my rebellious temperament. I thought in the end, I would get really cross with somebody at some diplomatic cocktail party and end up telling them exactly what I thought rather than what the British government thought. And I think, you know, although I sometimes wonder what would have happened had I been a diplomat, I think largely I made the right choice. I had an amazing time in the BBC. I had 22 years working there, and I worked in I worked in radio, I worked in TV, I worked on the very first BBC News website in 1997. I was an in-country project director in Rwanda, helping to train journalists and help the local broadcaster to become less statist and more sort of public service. And in my last 8 years at the BBC, I was age and disability correspondent for BBC News. So I supplied stories to radio and TV and online, all about disability and, you know, stories that pertain to disability and age. And as a result of this, I would every so often, I would go to exhibitions and roadshows and stuff. And one of them was called the Mobility Roadshow. And a couple of years running, I think it was held at Kemble Airfield in Wiltshire. And Aerobility were there. And they always would collar me and say, oh, you know, this is our latest thing. This is our latest service. Can you give us a mention? And I always would. And they always would say, do you fancy a quick 10 or 15 minute flight? Which I always said yes to, because as I'll explain in a minute, I've always been a bit of a flying nut. And I never really considered that flying was something that I could ever do. I remember one year, somebody from Aerobility took me up in a microlight, and it sort of, if you can imagine a plane that was made from old cornflake packets and held together with string and sellotape, that's what it felt like. I could see the world going by under my feet. I much prefer a proper aeroplane, let me just say that. I left the BBC in 2011 and I started to run my own company, a disability equality consultancy, and I gave disability and inclusion advice to a whole bunch of top UK companies, you know, banks, BT, Heathrow Airport Limited, BA, all sorts of different sectors, Microsoft. I always had a thing about aviation, and I always had a mission to make aviation an inclusive experience for passengers, because we've all read those stories about disabled people not getting the best service. So what about me and aviation then? Well, my mum and dad met during the Second World War. I think I can quite safely say that had it not been for the Second World War, my mum and dad would never have met, because he was from South Wales and she was from Leicestershire. You know, travel back then wasn't that easy, but they both happened to be stationed in Egypt at the time, and they met at a dance. My mum was in the Women's Air Force Auxiliary, and my dad was a sergeant in the RAF. He worked on radar. And so the Air Force was something that was always talked about at home. And, you know, people would come and visit us, and sometimes they'd be pilots or bomb aimers or whoever they were, and they'd be sort of swapping their war stories and reminiscing, and they'd be remembering friends who never came back from their missions. So you know, the RAF was sort of in my blood. Equally, I've always been obsessed with things like cars and airplanes, anything with an engine, really. And although I've probably long since learned to accept most of the limitations of my impairments, one of the things that really used to drive me nuts was not being able to drive a car. And the other thing that drove me nuts was that I didn't think I could fly an airplane. And so although I met Aerobility while I was at the BBC, I remember just thinking, what a brilliant charity. That's probably for ex-service personnel and people with a spinal injury, people who've just had a sort of major road traffic accident on a motorbike or whatever, and they can learn to fly. And isn't that brilliant? But then, because I'm a regular sort of Twitter and social media user, in 2022, I saw them advertising what they called the VAE, the Virtual Aviation Experience course, in a tweet. And it was basically 3 hours of properly taught instruction on a flight simulator. So I applied and I got it, and I had my 3 hours with a lovely man called Mark Rothwell, who was a former commercial pilot. And at the end of the 3 hours, Mark said to me, Geoff, you seem to have you know, quite a good knowledge of aviation, and you seem incredibly keen. And I said, well, yes, I am. He said, well, why aren't you flying then? And I said, well, Mark, I'm registered blind. I don't know whether you'd noticed that. His answer was something to the words to the effect of, well, so what? And I said, well, and he said, but there's always an instructor with you. You can, you know, you can do what you can do, and we can help you do the rest. And by the way, we've got some scholarships coming up. Would you like to apply for one? So I applied for a scholarship, which was for 5 hours of flying, and I did it. And I think by now, I think I've flown 10 hours. But I was so taken with flying. I was so thrilled and exhilarated by the feelings that flying gave me, that sort of buzz. It was a huge buzz. That when it came to my birthday and Christmas, which my birthday's in January, so but Christmas and my birthday all fall around the same time, I said to all of my friends and family, if you want to buy me anything at all, you don't have to, but if you want to buy me anything at all for Christmas, get me an Aerobility voucher. And I was very fortunate in that a lot of my friends and family were very generous, and I'm still living off the vouchers that people got me for my birthday and Christmas. Hopefully, the same thing will happen next Christmas. So what does this mean? It means I can do as much as I can do. There are certain controls that, because of my arms, I can't reach. So I have to say to the instructor, "Can you do this for me?" And he'll say, "Well, how much power do you want on the engine, or how much trim do you want to keep the aeroplane stable?" And I'll say, "Oh, give me 2 or 3 shots of trim, backwards or forwards, depending on what I need." But I do everything I can, and it's a bit like at home when I've got people at home who help me with cooking. The decision making is in my brain, and the instructor becomes my hands and my eyes for things I can't see. And I mean, it's quite amazing, because quite often I'll be flying with an instructor who'll say, "Now, do you see that chimney on the horizon that's smoking? Quite a big, tall chimney." And I'll look and I'll say, "No." And in the end, we have to agree what I can see, and he can say, "Well, okay, well, it's straight ahead now, so just keep that heading." I can see most of the instruments, especially the old-fashioned instruments that are like, the dials on an old car dashboard. So when everything is like an analog readout, like whether it's the direction or the vertical speed or the airspeed or the altitude or whatever it happens to be, I can read all that pretty much. And I know, even though I can't see fine detail on those gauges, I know what's at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 3 o'clock. So I can kind of pretty much guess where I'm supposed to be going and what I'm supposed to be doing. I've enjoyed and am enjoying it so much that on Monday, weather permitting, and that's always a big deal in the flying business, especially when you're doing what we call VFR, visual flying rules. You are reliant on the weather, so we tend to do a lot more flying in the summer than in the winter. And even in the summer, if the weather's wrong, if it's going to be rain, if the cloud's going to be low, if it's going to be extremely windy, we can't do it. So everybody, please keep your fingers crossed for Monday, because I'm supposed to be flying to Le Touquet in France, have lunch, and come back. So here's some pictures of me. This is me in the cockpit of the PA-28. This is the Piper Warrior that I tend to fly with Aerobility. This second picture is me standing next to the airplane I like to call my girlfriend. It's called Foxy P, FP. That's another PA-28, and it's just got exactly the configuration I like. The seat works for me, the instrument gauges work for me. And here's another picture of me in the cockpit of Foxy P. And there should be a final picture of me with my headset on, which is what the one that you saw at the beginning. So all I can say is, for me personally, going up in an airplane, A, is brilliant fun. B, you've got to keep so many plates spinning, it's untrue. You've got to keep your eye on so many things. And C, it does give you a lasting feeling of, literally well-being and lift. So, I think Aerobility like to say, if I can fly a plane, what else can I do? You really do feel when you're flying that plane that you're leaving a lot of your issues, a lot of your frustrations, or chronic pain or whatever it happens to be that you're living with. You leave them on the ground and you just enjoy that time in the sky. So I'll quickly talk a little bit about Aerobility. Who are we then? Well, we've been established for 21 years now, established in 1993. It's a really good community of staff and volunteers and, flying instructors who are really dedicated to see the ability in people and to solve problems rather than just saying, "Sorry, mate, it's not safe for you. We can't do that." I think I often like to say with Aerobility, if you cut it down like a stick of rock to see what was in the middle, it would say "can do." We cater for all disabilities, and we cater for particularly about 30% of people are either current serving or former armed services personnel. And like I've just said, why do it? Well, firstly, it's great fun to mess about in planes. But secondly, I think there is a long-lasting benefit, a long-lasting feeling that going up in a plane is, as good as a whole bunch of mood-enhancing drugs and a lot more fun. we provide flight training to people with disabilities from 3 bases: Blackbush near Camberley in Surrey, which is where I fly from, Lydd Airport, which I have yet to visit, which is in Kent, and Taton Hill near Burton-on-Trent in the Midlands. So depending on where you are, there's probably an Aerobility not too distant from you. We do education to encourage the realisation of ability among young people, and we do disability advocacy. I'll talk more about that in a minute. In other words, not content to get disabled people up in planes, we do a whole lot of advocacy work that stretches our envelope even further. So in terms of our flight services, you can do an experience flight, which is just you and an instructor going up, and you'll probably be offered the controls once the airplane's safely in the air. We do respite flights for people who just need their dose of air time, a bit like people need their dose of doggy time, who are sort of dog fans. You know, some people just every few months just think, yeah, I just need to get up in the air. And we do proper flight training up until including private pilot's license. And Harvey, who's here, is one of the people who's been through the whole program and now is a proper pilot, unlike me. I will never be a pilot. I will always have to rely on a qualified pilot to sit next to me. But my goodness, that doesn't really matter to me. This is our fleet. There's a PA-28 Piper Warrior on the left. This one is has the registration India Romeo. I was flying that one last time. Don't like it so much because it's got electronic avionics instead of the gauges. Here on the going round the clock, there's a couple of aircraft in the air. One is another PA-28 Piper Warrior, and the other one is the Technam, which I tried to fly, which my instructor wanted me to fly because he thought it would be more accessible. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a yoke. It has like a joystick, a control stick, and I would have had to spend most of my time with my head practically between my knees in order to control the plane. And then he really would worry about what what I could see out the window. The answer would have been nothing. And the last thing down there is a Zen Air. I'll talk about that more in a minute. It's an aircraft that's being built by people at Aerobility. So we also do a ground school, and that's 15 sessions a year with a 30-minute experience flight, and that's funded by one of our sponsors, JetBlue. We do a young aspiring pilots program with 2.5 hours of flying, which acts as like a taster. We just want to get people, interested and enthusiastic as young as possible. And I have to say, we had a meeting of ambassadors last Saturday. One of our new ambassadors is only 17, and he's doing his A-levels, I think, at the moment. Here we are building a dream. This is the Zen Air, as I just mentioned before. This is being built from scratch by a team of volunteer engineers and people at Aerobility. It's going to be part of our Aerobility fleet. And, we are all about encouraging equal access to aviation, both in terms of the participation, but also the aeronautical design. We even look forward to disability in space. We're thinking by the end of this decade, or certainly halfway through the next decade, people will be doing space tourism, and they won't be spending sort of £500,000 to do so. Now, we think this is an interesting proposition for people with disabilities, especially people who are, let's say, paraplegic, who might quite benefit from the weightlessness that engenders. So we're keeping an eye on that. And we're also helping to put the first disabled astronaut in space via the European Space Agency and King's Cross. And we've been asked for our advice on that. So we are getting a name for ourselves in the industry as experts on accessibility and aviation. Now, this is the Equal Skies Charter, and this is what I meant about pushing the envelope a bit. This is a charter that we're trying to get people in the aviation industry to sign up to make all aspects of aviation accessible to people with disabilities. We know that disabled people as travelers sometimes get a bad service. And equally, I know from my days at the BBC that when disabled people would complain about how they were portrayed on TV, I would always be telling BBC management, well, you're not going to get proper, authentic portrayal on television unless you employ disabled people behind the camera, making editorial decisions, casting people in dramas. So we've got pretty much the same intellectual approach here with Equal Skies Charter. We want people in the aviation industry to sign up to employing more disabled people, to making their part of the industry more accessible to those with disabilities. And on the right-hand side of the slide, there's a whole bunch of logos. I won't read them all, but the National Air Traffic Control Service, the Civil Aviation Authority, Biggin Hill Airport, these are people that have already signed up, and we want more people to sign up. Harvey spotted that I would be quite a good advocate for this, so he asked me to be on the steering group for this Equal Skies Charter. So in addition to being an ambassador, I'm also on that board as well. We've got a bit of a demarcation problem here. Me and my fellow ambassadors have only just been appointed. We also have other people called ambassadors who, in my experience of charities, would be better suited to being called patrons, but I'll leave that to Harvey to argue with his bosses. Jessica Cox, who's a friend of mine, who's American, she's the world's first pilot without arms, and watching her fly is amazing. If you just type Jessica Cox into YouTube, she's got a gazillion videos. Arthur Williams, pilot and TV presenter, he's another. And historically, Buzz Aldrin, the astronaut, is also an Aerobility ambassador / patron. So we get very good support. We always get good support from sponsors and from funders. We have an annual ball, the Aviators Ball, to raise funds for the organization. And we just want to see as many people with as many different disabilities as possible coming to experience the joys of flight. So in terms of what you can do with Aerobility without going to get up in a plane, as I say, we've got the virtual aviation experience. You can do that. You can't hurt anybody by crashing a flight simulator. We've got a podcast and YouTube channel called Inspirability, where people from the aviation industry come and give interviews to the presenter. So you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. And then there's Aerobility Live, which is both a physical event and an online event, which is like an air show. And I was at that event a couple of weeks ago and managed to surprise my wife by buying her first flying lesson. I'll try to get her as enthused with aviation as I am. So that's pretty much it from me, but you must have some questions. So I'm going to hand you back to Mark, probably, who will moderate this, if I can work out how to stop sharing my screen. There we are.
That was absolutely incredible and so inspiring. And everything that you said, Geoff, is 110% true. I was very fortunate myself to be given a Aerobility voucher to do my very first flying lesson, and I was in the Piper Warrior with the digital display, and I just found it such an amazing experience. I had such an amazing instructor who led me around the plane from front to back and inside and out, showed me all the controls. And like you say, to get up in the air and for once to actually go up in a plane and stay in the plane was a novelty for me, because I'm usually strapped to the wing or I'm actually jumping out of it at 15,000 feet. So to be able to control the plane, taxi out, take off at 65 knots, fly around for 20 minutes and land the plane as well was just an absolute dream of mine. And it's just one thing that I can tick off my to-do list as someone that's living with sight loss. And if anybody's interested in taking up that opportunity, from me personally, it's definitely worth doing. So has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask Geoff?
Yeah. Up, so,
who's got their first hand up?
One person that's dialed in.
Oh, we've got someone that's dialed in. What's the number on the end?
Yeah, hi, it's Amrit.
Hi, Amrit.
Yeah, hello, hi everyone. Hello, Geoff. Thank you for a
Hello,
very,
Henry.
very fascinating and engaging talk. Really great to hear about aerobility, but your life story is equally fascinating. So I'm not ready. I don't feel I'm ready to go up in the air. And I'm not sure if you mentioned that. Do you have a flight simulator where you kind of get the sense that you're flying, but you haven't left the ground, kind of thing? I don't know if there's anything like that.
Yes. Yeah, we do. We have two things that we can offer. We have the virtual aviation experience you can do from home. When I did mine, Aerobility posted me a joystick because I didn't have a joystick for my computer. So you can do that from the safety and comfort of your own home, just to get the idea of how a plane works and how it handles. But we also do have a physical simulator that you can sit in and fly. I think it's based on a Cessna 152, unless I'm very much mistaken, Harvey. And you can sit in that and fly that.
Yes. So are you actually in that experience, and are you actually kind of you've got hold of the controls and you get a sense that you're flying?
Yeah, you mean in the physical simulator?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I haven't actually used it. Harvey, can you say any more about it?
Yeah, sorry, just unmuting myself. So yeah, it's very great. Yeah, based on a 170, which is like a 150, but a bit chunkier, a bit beefier. And it's totally static, so you're not going anywhere. But what it is an old fuselage with screens wrapped around it. So when you're in there for a little while, you do start to get that impression that you're actually up in the air flying a real aircraft. And in addition to that, all the instrumentation still works. You can touch everything, pull the levers, and it replicates what would happen in real life. So that would be a great first step.
So you can fly without leaving the ground.
Yes. Well, I've got to attempt going up in a hot air balloon first. I'm trying to brave myself to do that. But I think some people would say you're probably safer in the plane than you are in a balloon with a basket at the end of it.
Well, I did that last year, Amrit, and it was great.
Thank you. So will all this information, I presume, be on your website of all the different kind of experiences that you offer?
Absolutely. And do have a look at our YouTube channel as well.
I will do. Thank you so much.
I will include all of this information in our follow-up email. So if Harvey and Geoff are happy to share any links, any YouTube videos, I will forward this on to everyone that's registered for tonight's meeting. So thanks very much for your question, Amrit. It was actually a really good one. So we've got Jonathan next with his hand up. Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Hi, I'm Mark. Geoff, thank you. You truly are an inspiration. I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard that. So thank you for that amazing talk. And bon appetit for your lunch in France. I hope it goes really well.
Thank you.
I've had a look at your website, and you're right. Hot air ballooning is great fun. So Amrit, go for it. I had a look at your website, and it sounds amazing. What I'd like to know is, I'd love to come and try the aerobatic experience. What do I need to have done before that, or is it just sign up and come and do it, or what's the rules?
I'll let Harvey answer that.
No problem. So for the aerobatic experience, you can just turn up and give it a go. So you don't require any previous experience, and the first step will be to get in touch with our front desk, so frontdesk@aerobility.com, and they'll let you know all the prices, all the process you have to go through. It's just a single form, and you fill in.
Brilliant. I will definitely do that. I checked the form, and there was nothing on there that was a problem. And then you spoke about respite flying. That sounds amazing. So is it a case of you doing the same sort of an experienced flight every so often, or what is it if you're doing that sort of thing?
I guess it is. It's people who just want a sort of, to top up their aviation thirst every now and again. And I guess you could ask the instructor to show you particular things, or a tight turn, or whatever it happens to be. But you're doing it more as a passenger, I would say, than as a flying student.
Sure. And then my last question is, I would ask my partner to accompany me. She's not disabled or visually impaired. I'm blind. I've got the tiniest little bit of peripheral vision remaining, but she's got not got anything. Would she be able to go in the plane, or is it purely?
Yes. My wife goes up almost every time I fly. My wife goes up with us, and Aerobility usually just asks me to pay £10 extra to cover the extra fuel.
Fantastic. Oh, this is very exciting. Thank you, and I hope to be at Aerobility sometime soon.
We hope to see you.
Great. Thanks, Geoff. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to share? Harvey or Geoff?
Oh, Terry.
Oh, Terry's got a hand up. Hi, Terry.
Hi. Thank you for your talk. It was really interesting. I just wanted to find out if maybe you could give us an idea of the cost. Is it very expensive, or is that something just to go on the website and look for?
I'm not sure how much we charge for the experience flights. I know that, for example, when I'm doing lessons, it's charged at something like £175 for an hour. Harvey, do you know how much we charge for an experience flight? I know that we make a loss on everything.
Yeah, so on the experience flight, it's £86. For the aerobatics experience, it's slightly more, in the £90. But it's important to know, even though there is a cost, it's a fraction of the commercial rate. So that's one thing we do to make it slightly more affordable and accessible.
It's certainly well below the commercial rate. I can tell you that because I just bought my wife a flying lesson, and I was quite shocked by how much more it cost. So the Aerobility, thanks to the generosity of our funders, is able to subsidise that rate. We'd love to give it to everybody for free, but we work in the real world.
Thank you.
No, thanks very much for your question, Terry. And if anybody is interested in doing a challenge which is threefold, getting an amazing experience, supporting the amazing work that they do at Aerobility, and also raising the vital research funds and support services for Retina UK, why not do it as a fundraising challenge and raise money to help both charities support the running costs of Aerobility, and then also support Retina UK as well? Or ask, like Geoff has done year after year, is just ask for a flying lesson gift certificate. And it's definitely worth it, 100%. I've got one question for you, Geoff. What plane haven't you flown, and what plane would you really much like to fly?
I mean, I've almost not flown any planes apart from the PA-28. What would I like to fly in an ideal world? I mean, the nostalgia part of me always wants to fly a Spitfire. But, there's only one two-seater Spitfire, and that's at Biggin Hill. Apparently, there were no two-seater Spitfires, and I certainly wouldn't want to be let loose on one solo. I would love to fly one of those really, I mean, if you look on YouTube, there's all sorts of, there's yards and miles of great flying videos. And sometimes you get sort of reviews of these little executive jets or whatever from people in the USA. And I would just love to fly one of them because they look so kind of swanky compared with the almost steam powered aviation that we do, but I love the steam power. It's great.
There was one other thing when I was chatting to my instructor. He said that they were experimenting with more audible devices to help those visually impaired, and I was actually amazed by this because I don't have much vision myself and I couldn't see the horizon. So trying to keep the plane level was quite difficult. I was also small corrections, always lots of small corrections. And he said that they were trying to develop kind of like a reversing beacon like you hear in cars. So when you're at pitch perfect, it flatlines and then disappears, but then as soon as one wing dips, it starts to beep slowly. So it means that someone that is visually impaired can have more control over the plane with things like elevation and control and trim, rear management and realignment. Has that something that you've experienced, or is that something that's still being developed at Aerobility?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Harvey might be able to tell you about how some of our planes are adapted in a moment, but I would just say this, that firstly, you wouldn't be allowed to use those adaptations to get your private pilot's license because the CAA is quite strict about you having to do everything sort of manually. You know, you have to do it the old way before you can start using autopilots and all sorts of other lovely aids that are on modern aircraft. Secondly, I was inside one of our PA-28s recently, and there was a button on the yoke, which is like the kind of steering column, if you like, to give it a car analogy. And I said to the instructor, "What's that button?" He said, "Oh, that was to manage the flaps, but that was put on when we bought the plane from the USA." And the first thing the CAA did when it came here was they made us take it off. Now, okay, we can get them put back on, but it costs money. But you know, sometimes the CAA can be a little bit sort of Jobsworthish about all these adaptations. I think the future of aviation will certainly be lots of fly-by-wire stuff, lots of aids, lots of navigational stuff, things about the airplane. I mean, you could fly an Airbus, for example, almost without having to see out of the window, let's say. But you have to be able to do it the old-fashioned way in order to get to be an Airbus pilot.
No, thank you very much. Yes, it's really interesting.
Yeah,
very happy for you to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on, Harvey.
No, apologies. I thought you were done. But just picking up on that adaptation specifically, it is something we're still keen to work on. So a good research partner for us with that bit of technology was that NATS, the National Air Traffic Service. But I guess the step towards that is, as of yesterday, the virtual aviation experience now has a adapted aircraft in the simulator that can be accessed for people who aren't totally blind. Say that's using the audio forms that you mentioned earlier for both pitch and mold, but also altitude and speed callouts. For me, if that's successful in a simulator, it's a real test of that concept and a small step towards hopefully having that adaptation come onto real aircraft in the future.
That is absolutely incredible. Many of us navigate the world, our homes, our smart devices by voice. So having a plane where you can go up for a flying experience and ask the plane, "Hey plane, what speed am I at?" or "What is my altitude?" or "What is my pitch level?" and have it respond just like our smart devices, our Alexas, our Googles. it will make the experience that so much more memorable. Not that taking anything away from what I experienced when I did my flight, and you know, if I had the opportunity, I'll be back up there tomorrow. But it would just, you know, it would actually just, you know, support the visually impaired and just make that experience just that little bit more independent, if that's the word.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, there are so many emerging technologies which are going to enable the use of things like cars and aeroplanes for people with different types of abilities. I'm quite excited by the whole thing. I think the CAA just needs to catch up a little bit, and it will eventually. Just to say also, Mark, while I'm talking, I'm very happy to be as an ambassador. I'm happy to be contacted personally. I'm happy for you to share my email with anybody from Retina UK.
Lovely. No, I really do appreciate that. We've got Amrit. She's got a hand up again.
Yeah, sorry, it's so fascinating, all this. Yes, so Geoff, I just wanted to ask you that, is it just the flying that you've done, or have you also done the landing and taking off in the plane? Because I know
I've done all of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've done all of it. I mean, it takes a while to get the hang of it, and I'm still. A couple of times I've tried to hand back control of the plane to the instructor while we're in the process of landing, and both times I've been told no. You know, there's a protocol. We say you have control, and I've said to the instructor, you have control, and he says no, you have control. Land the plane. Of course, he wouldn't let me smash it into the ground, you know. I mean, but it's lovely. It's a lovely. Once you get down on the ground, it's just lovely to think. Yeah, I could see how to do that. I could see my speed falling. I could see the descent. And it's so beautifully controlled. Harvey will tell you much more about it because he's a proper pilot, unlike me.
Yeah, because you have to get, the reason I was asking is because I presume you have to get so much accuracy to make the wheels land right at that right time on land. So I just
You do.
Yeah.
You do, but you can see out of the window. You can tell from your altimeter, and your instructor will always say, oh, you need to raise the nose a little bit, or you need a little bit more power, or whatever. They're never going to let you smash it. They don't want to die. They're not going to let you smash it into a building or something.
No, thank you.
Amrit, personally speaking, I use the force quite a lot as well. So, it just, your instincts, come alive. And it feels like Geoff has said, it just feels natural. You've got a trained pilot next to you. He tells you step by step, what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, nose up, nose down. And you're in such safe hands,
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
So it's about a couple of minutes to. Does anyone have any final questions? And then I'll just do a quick wrap up, and I will allow you all to go on with the rest of your evenings. So, have we got any final questions? No. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Before we go, if anybody is interested in other peer group activity throughout July and August, we've got lots going on in terms of new events. First of all, we've got a webinar coming up that will focus around the inspirations of our young community that live with inherited sight loss, and it's to kick off our young person or young adults project that we're doing at Retina UK. That is on the 10th, and it's now live on our website for you to register for. If anyone is around the Manchester area, please come and join Rachel and Richard for our Manchester peer group, where we will be joined by a professional England blind football player and advocate for blind sports. That is going to be online from 7 p.m. on the 11th. And then moving into the next week, we've got our very first young adult peer support group. So if you're aged between 18 and 30, we are looking to support and grow our services for our young adult community. That is going to be on the 16th of July. And then we've got West Midlands on the 23rd. They are going to, was it the 23rd? 27th, sorry, the 27th. West Midlands are going to the theatre to see Sherlock Holmes. And also on the 27th, the London Peer Support Group is having a trip to an Italian restaurant and also Hayes Galleria as well. And also followed by a photograph at the iconic HMS Belfast. And then moving into August, we have our Tyne and Wear peer group in person at the Bridges again, and hosted by Colin Hetherington. That's in person. Come along. That starts at 1 p.m. That one in person. So all 10th of August, and all of these will be available in the follow-up email as well. And please don't forget our annual conference on the 28th of September, which will be held in Manchester, Piccadilly. If anyone is interested in that, the registration is now open. I will include links as well to that one. Please come along. We'd like to see as many of our peer support group network there to mingle, share tips and hints with each other from all over the UK. So I believe that is me done. It's a lot to remember, but if anyone has any queries or questions or feedback, please provide your feedback in the follow-up email, or you can just directly email services@retinauk.org.uk or contact our office and helpline numbers. Our helpline is 0300 111 4000. Our office number is 01280 821 334. Or you can just contact me directly, and I'll put my mobile number in the follow-up email as well. So thank you very, very much to everybody. A massive thank you to Harvey and Geoff for such an amazing presentation to talk about such an awesome flying charity such as Aerobility. Really do appreciate your time. Massive thank you to Caroline as well by my side, that's helped me with the comms and help read out your questions. Once again, thanks to everyone for your support for Retina UK and joining us for the National Peer Support Group. The next one will be on the 25th of September. So please come and join that if you love to cook and bake. More information will be available soon on our website. So I'll bid you a good night, and thanks again all for coming. You take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Lovely to meet you all.
Take care.
Okay, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Everyone,
Bye-bye.
after Caroline too.
Bye. Bye, Jonathan.
Bye.
Bye, Beth. Good to hear
Bye.
from you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
We hope you've enjoyed this Retina UK peer group recording. If you have any questions or queries regarding its content, or you would like to leave us some feedback, then please do get in touch. You can contact us via our helpline on 0300 111 4000, call the office team on 01280 821 334, or alternatively, you can contact us via email at services@retinauk.org.uk. If you are interested in creating your own peer support group and assisting Retina UK to grow our peer support group network and join our amazing team of volunteers, then please do get in touch by contacting us at info@retinauk.org.uk and speak to a member of staff to see how you can get involved. Thanks again for listening, and please stay tuned for more peer support group recordings coming throughout this year. Take care and all the best. Bye for now.